Okay, let's begin. You know something? I can't touch you without you touching me. I can't push on you without you pushing on me. I can't nudge you without you nudging me. I can't interact with you without you interacting with me. And this brings up a law of physics, gang, and what's the name of it? Newton's what? Newton's third law, the law of action and reaction. I can demonstrate that like this. I'm bending my fingers up the most I possibly can. That's the most I can bend my fingers up. I can't bend them any higher. But if I push them, I can. Let's suppose I push on the podium. Now my fingers are being bent up. What's bending my fingers up? Podium. Yeah. That's the most I can bend them. Would you push on my fingers, please? Now my fingers are bent just like before, okay? What's happening to my fingers, gang? They're being pushed on, isn't that right? They're being pushed on. That's why you see them bent up like that, right? How about when I touch the wall over here? Was the wall pushing on my fingers too? See, a lot of people don't see that. Non-physics types don't see that. But physics types see, hey man, he's pushing on the wall. And what's the wall doing to him? Watch how I lean. I'm leaning on the wall, huh? Okay? Now, everybody say, hey, the dude's pushing against the wall. Okay? Call this the wall. Okay? Everybody sees the dude pushing against the wall. Physics types see that too. And physics types see something else. And what else do physics types see? Check your neighbor, see if you're sitting next to a physics type. So what's happening, gang? When I push on the wall, what's the wall do? Hey, you know something? I can't push against that wall without the wall pushing on me. And this further defines an idea we've been talking about all this time. And that's the idea of force. When you impress a force on something, you tend to accelerate that something. That force we're going to further define. A force is an interaction between one thing and another always, all the time. A force is an interaction between, in this case, my hand on the wall, if this is a wall, and what's the reaction? That'd be the action force, hand on wall. What's the reaction, gang? Wall on hand. You can't push on something without being pushed back. Can't be done. Here's a couple of blocks. These blocks right now don't interact with one another. But now I'm going to attach them with an elastic band. So the big block, when I stretch it, will pull on the little block. Okay? Now, which block is pulling? Is the big block pulling on the little block? Or is the little block pulling on the big block? What do you suppose? Check your neighbor. Now watch the blocks. I'm going to let the blocks go. And sure enough, did you see them both move? That's strange. The more massive block didn't move as much as the little block. I wonder why. Maybe the pulls were different. Maybe the big block is pulling harder on the little block because it didn't move very much. Why don't we make the mass of the little block even more? And what I'll do is I'll put some clay on it, okay? Make it more massive, okay? Now, will a little block pull harder? And we see they both move about the same. If they did move about the same, what could you say about the forces that act out in each? And what can you say about the masses of each? Yeah. Now, when I make them unequal masses, and I pull, which pulled harder? The big one on the little one, or the little one on the big one? That's a question for you to think about, and check that with your neighbor right now. How many say they might be different masses, but you know what? They're both pulling on each other the same. Show of hands. Is my people, my people. All right, all right. Well, let's test that. Could you do something for me, please? Could you hold this rock? We're going to have a tug of war here. Okay, Helen's going to pull the rope that way, and I'm going to pull it this way. Now, who's bigger, me or Helen? Okay, okay. Now we pull. Okay. Now, who's pulling harder? Am I pulling her harder, or is she pulling me harder? How are we pulling, gang? How? Check the neighbor on that one. What do you suppose? Is she pulling me harder, or am I pulling her harder? Huh? Who's pulling harder? Is that so? You used to say, I'm pulling harder because you see the rope moving this way. That's what you used to say. Remember the old days? when you didn't have that spark called what? Begin with a F. Physics, all right? And now you're getting that spark, right? And now you're starting to see the world a little differently. Let's try this with a couple of scales. Attach this right on here. Okay. Now you pull that side, and we can measure the force, gang, yeah? And I'll pull over here. Now you look to see who pulls harder, me on Helen or Helen on me. And here we go. How do the readings look, gang? Huh? Which one's harder? How about there? How about there? And what are they, gang? SS. Same, same. I can't pull on you any harder than you pull on me, okay? And when I touch you, who's touching who? Am I touching her or is she touching me? She's touching my hand. I felt it. From my point of view, she's touching me. From her point of view, I'm touching her. Who's touching who? We're touching each other. Thank you, Helen. My thumb, my forefinger. They're pulling on each other. Which is pulling harder? The thumb on the finger or the finger on the thumb? Check your neighbor. Now I got another question for you, gang. A question maybe you couldn't answer a year ago, and a question today you can answer. And you check this when you go home. Check the folks at home and ask the folks this. Hey, is the Earth pulling on the moon? They say, yeah, it's kind of pulling the moon around in orbit. Okay. Say, but if you lived on the moon, would you say that the moon is pulling on the Earth? Now that moon's kind of small compared to the Earth, only 1/6 the mass. And what would your parents say? Is the moon pulling on the Earth? What would they say? Let's suppose they say, yes, I think so. Now you say, hey, which pulls with the greatest force? The moon, the Earth pulling on the moon? Or the moon pulling on the Earth? Remember when you weren't so sure about a question like that? What if I'd asked you guys that question a month ago? What would you have said? Man, that's a big moon. That's a big Earth, honey. That's a little dinky moon. That gravity of that Earth, honey, pulling that moon right down, right? Well, maybe the moon pulling a little bit back, but how hard back? Check your neighbor now. E. Which pulls harder? You learning this stuff? Huh? Is it kind of fitting? Huh? The moon and the Earth are pulling on each other in one interaction. And that one interaction is Earth pull on moon, moon pull on... You can't have one without the other. They're both counterparts of the same interaction. Do you see that? We can put that down as a rule. If body A pulls on body B, call that action. Then reaction is body B pulls on body A. It's that simple. Let's put that up here. If action is A pulls on B, A could be the Earth. The Earth pulls on the moon. How can that be? Unless A, okay? And we call that the reaction. Reaction is just whip, switch them around. B pulls on A. It's that simple. You got it? I want to move across the floor. What I do is I push back on the floor. I push back on the floor with my feet. I'm pushing the floor this way. If I were on a skateboard, you'd see it move that way. Huh? I push back on the floor. What pushes on me? The floor. If I push back on the floor, honey, the other part of the interaction is the floor push on. That's why I move. You're in the swimming pool. You're here. You want to get there. What do? What do you do to the water? You push the water back. When you push the water back, how can you do that without the water pushing you forward? So you push the water back, the water pushes you forward, and away you go. You want to learn how to swim fast? Push as much water back with as much speed as you can. And the more water you push back, the more you push on the water, the more the water is going to push on you. And that's what makes you move. You see a car going down the street, huh? Now you're all sad. You see a car, you see the cars going down the road. Give some respect to the road. Because what's happening? The wheels are turning, huh? The wheels are turning. Are the wheels pushing against the road? And which way are they pushing against the road right here? This way, right? So the wheels are pushing the road that way. That's the road. Now, what does the road do to the wheels? The road pushes the wheels this way. And the wheels are connected to the car. And so the car then moves. That's why. Try this with your friends. You're out there looking at the cars go by in the road, right? You say to your friends, "Wow, man, look at that road pushing those cars along." True or false? True or false? The road pushes the cars along. Come on. Hey, you believe that? How many say, "Sounds right to me"? Boom. Show of hands. How many say, "No way, man. I can understand the wheels pushing on the road, but it stops there. That road don't do any pushing because the road ain't alive. You got to be alive to push." Is that true? Huh? When I was pulling this scale over here, you saw this thing read some readings, and you saw Helen's hand on the other side. Let's suppose from Helen's hand, I put it on a hook on the wall. And now I pull. Couldn't I get the same reading? What's holding it? The wall's dead. How can a dead wall hold? The dead wall not only holds it, it pulls it just as if a hand were there. You can't tell the difference. If you're doing a tug of war, you're playing a tug of war with a whole lot of people. Get a whole, these people here, huh? You guys all pull a rope, huh? And you guys pull the other side, yeah? And you pull it, both pulling, huh? And what's the tension say there if these people here pull with 100? What do they have? And it stays still. What are these guys got to be holding it with? What's the reading on the scale? 100. Now what I do is I take a break, and I take a curtain. I put a curtain here, and I cut a hole through it, and I put the rope through it. I say, "Okay, we're going to do it again, gang. We're going to do it again, gang. Hey, we're going to play a trick. You guys sit down." I take the rope, and I put it on a hook on the wall. Hooked on there, right? I say, "Okay, pull like before." These guys over here, they pull just like before. They're pulling with 100, right? What's the scale reading say here? 100. Yeah, some people say 200. What do we say? 100. Okay. 100. What's going on the other side? That's right. The wall's pulling. It's just as hard as the rope pulling on the wall. This is stuff hard. This stuff is kind of neat, ain't it, huh? You can't have a force without a counterpart. You can't have something pulling on something. Ain't that nice? So the wall pulls just as much as a human being. Same thing. Question?
What's the tension?
The tension would be the force that tends to stretch it. See, and that tension would be the same all throughout the rope. Even if the rope moves like this, see, it'd still be more. It turns out in a tug of war, the person to win in a tug of war is not the one that pulls hardest on the rope, because the rope would be pulled on both sides equally all the time. It's the one who pushes harder against the ground. The one who pushes against the ground harder, see, because the rope's a standoff. Four ropes can't cancel out. So if I push against the ground the harder than she pushes against the ground, then I'll pull her and I'll win the tug of war. So how could you play a tug of war on ice with slippery, slippery feet? You'd pull on the rope, and what would you guys do? You'd pull toward each other. So no one would go the other way. Can I see that? See? You're riding your bike. You don't have a 10-speed. You can't afford a 10-speed, honey. You got a 1-speed. And you're going up a road, and the road's like this. Now you got to pump. You got to go up the road. What do you guys do? How many people sit on a seat and try to pump and going up? You don't do that. You stand up, don't you? And when you stand up, don't you pull up on the handlebars when you push down? Why do you do that?